Hi, and welcome to the 9th edition of the VanBay DevLog. 9th video, we're getting close to 10. And today's episode is all about optimization. So as you can see here, I've added the little rock on symbol next to some icons. I call it the selector so that it's very clear where you are in the menu. Obviously, sound indicators highlight around the object you're selecting, but it makes a nice little I got you, and you know exactly where you are in menus. What we're looking at right now seemed like a very slow process, but that took 20 seconds to load an entire open world game with hundreds of enemies. And that's incredible because for the last 2 weeks, I've been working on the system. And here, side by side, you have two videos. I'm just starting a new game and then loading the world. It used to be one entire world that would load up. I thought, open world, one scene, there you go. And how I was wrong. And basically what I've done is broken down components of that scene or that world into little chunks and just loading what I need. And as you can see, it is so much faster. Please disregard all the warnings in the console. That's totally in the works right now. It's so incredible how fast it's become, and excited to see this working on a variety of machines. It could potentially work on machines that are much slower without it being terrible. And for your viewing purposes, I've sped up these videos at 200% just to make this a little faster. But I have a video playing in the background and a video on the right with the new world streaming. I'm able to load into a game twice before the old one can load in, which is insane, which makes playtesting way faster because now I can load into the scenes into the game and I can playtest things in like real environments. And these environments have like hundreds of AI who have updates on every frame to figure out, am I seeing a player? Something is happening. Should I be doing a different state? I have some enemies that will like go from state 1 to state 2 and just circle big crushers. Or you have people who are on patrol that will go from point 1, point 2, and then loop around. And this kind of showcases the amount of AI that is being spawned. Right now there's 113. 38 are visible on screen active. Within those 113, 4 or 5 are allies, 2 are bosses. But as you can see, and I've explained this in a previous video, there's this like radius around the player, circles around the player. Whoever's within this radius will be spawned. Everything else will be deactivated. I'll save up on memory space. So what you're seeing here is scenes loading while things are happening, like a cutscene, for example. Here in the back end, it's a little behind the scenes. You can see that I have a main world and then it's split up between every section. So this main one here that we're looking at is the prologue, and it's got this catcher. It's a trigger teleporter in case you create a character and don't save, and then you kind of like, oh, I'll just restart from that save file, but you haven't saved, so it doesn't know where your current player location is. So it teleports you to 000, which is under the map. And I need you to start at a specific location. So if this happens, there's a fail safe that'll teleport you to the right location. And here you see the forest is cut up in tons of different variations where we load and unload sections until we get to the Squam City. And even then, in the distance, you can see other sections, the road north that cuts, or the sea to sky that keeps going. So like I said before, optimization. I like this looping UI. So every class is on the top right. You get a small description of the character class, all the stats, and they've always been integrated, but now you see them. Have that Darksouls experience. And it's all about optimization. So the selector, so you know where you're going, but it was like other menus. So UI takes forever it's very tedious. You're just sliding in things into the inspector. And sometimes you look at it and it jitters in the center of the screen and you have no idea why. And then the looping section was left to right, up and down, and here it is. It works. Keeps it centered in the screen so you can go up and down and it'll show you on the right side what weapon you're looking at, and it looks smooth. And it works for every other section. So weapons, accoutrement, consumables, spells, and goodies. I've recently added rings. And something that happens often when I try to add new components is that at first it'll just be I'm adding rings and they'll add changes onto player stats or like a defense bonus to certain attributes. But then I'll be thinking, well, I should also be adding the ability for negation of other things or addition to other attributes. And so you just kind of like do iterations and just keep building up and then trying to see those numbers work out. And here you can see I died because I put it on a ring that gave me 100 vigor points, and then I removed it. But there was like some weird back-end thing which was giving me 100 every time I took it off and took it on, and gave me another 100, and you saw it gave me 300 and then eventually negative points, and so I just died. Here I'm trying some rings. I added a ring, it gives me 100 physical damage, and it didn't do it. But here, after playtesting, different coding, here we go, we try it. Boom, 231, that's 100 more on physical damage. And just to showcase, I'll remove it. And we should be going back to 131. And that works on charged attacks, backstabs, riposte, all the above. So every time you playtest, I try the level again, have the world streaming, so I can go back into the game and test it out. Has made it 100 times better. I'm not just sitting and waiting for it to like load. Although I've seen these tutorial pop-ups a million times, which I have to change the photos of PNGs. I have to change the PNGs. And I get to test out some other mechanics every time I do it. So I kind of add more to my plate every time, but at least it makes every playthrough worthwhile. So here, environmental hazards, I'm testing out is if a ring will give me lightning resistance. It's not, but figured it out. Eventually it does. Looking at this though, I can see I can still add electric damage VFX. So while making these levels, I've been trying to figure a way to level design better. So as you can see throughout this video, this level itself, the tutorial, has had many iterations. And playtesting, you kind of want to go for different builds. So I've been showing some physical based builds. Now I want to work on like faith or magic user builds. So here I'm playtesting spells and then trying to level up mind, intelligence, faith, arcane, and then seeing if I can get damage multiplier depending on the skill, depending on the spell, and then depending on what the scaling is on that specific spell. So some could have mind, some could have intelligence, others faith, and so on. For this specific playthrough, I want to showcase or try out different spells. So I'm trying to raise my mind. Here you can see I was lacking some scores to level up my mind, but I finally got it. I'm doing 174. I'm gonna speed run, kill a bunch of little zombie dudes, get a bunch of scores at like 200%, 300%, 400%, just faster and faster. And then I'll just raise up with a stat and then test out to see if a specific spell will level up. I'm sure I could have been much smarter and faster about it, like giving myself score items, which basically act like a rune, where you could just kind of like consume to gain scores. I've already programmed them in. There's no reason why I didn't do this, but sometimes on my playthroughs, I want to test out the enemies, test out the spells, make sure that everything feels good, and then boom, go back to level 1. And just something to keep in mind, I do a lot of these playthroughs so I can test out and see if the scaling that I put feels right. So for here example, I only got like 2 damage more than the previous level. Is 2 worth a whole leveling up? No. And for a solo dev, I think that iteration through playthrough has a lot of benefits. a downside is that it takes a long time, but at the same time, I'm playing it, I'm feeling it, and then when somebody else tries it, I think they have a lot more enjoyment with it because they can kind of see the work that's been put into it, or at least it feels well balanced. I don't know if they'll actually see the work that I've done. I'm curious to hear what you think. How do you go about playtesting, balancing, and how often do you playtest? I think a great benefit of making these videos for me is to see the progress I make and the room that I have to make improvements. One of the things that will be on the docket for next week will be AI patterns for movements. As you just saw previously, like 2 seconds ago, right here, you can see the enemy is taking the same route to get to the player. Can we acknowledge the death on the right side of the screen? So the environmental damage works. This lady died in an electric puddle. This level has made quite some improvements. It's much more lateral. There's some secret areas you can investigate. It's just a tutorial. It's like 1 block down, head to the club, and wake up from a dream. It's just a tutorial. But through this tutorial, I wanted to showcase some of the basic elements of the game and show its personality. So it's a modern day Darksouls EldenRing, so the environmental hazards are electric puddles, fire, scaffolding. I made so many iterations with the spells, testing out what feels good, what feels well balanced and not going to be annoying. Like if you keep casting spells and losing your focus points and it never hitting a target, is it well programmed? Is it a game just trying to be hard? So I'm trying to find a good balance there. I've played many tutorials just to get a well-defined, look at that. You got to play test 2 puddles, one on top of another. What's going on here? So, like I was saying, it's important as a developer to think about what you need to teach the player. I know all the mechanics. I have to make sure the players do, and that I'm not bombarding them and it flows well, and that we're still pointing to the main objective of the game and tell the story. Another thing on the docket, whenever you can throw a rock at this person, right? And they're going to run to you through the puddle. And because the puddle is causing damage to the character, it changes their target to null, like nothing, because the puddle damaged them. Anyways, environmental hazard still needs a little bit of work, but here you can see it at its full glory. Just lure some enemies and boom, and boom. But at the same time, it's not just the enemies who can suffer from scaffolding. So be careful. And like, subscribe, comment, share to anyone who's really into like Dark Souls kind of stuff. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.